Good morning, I'm Dr. Petra. Welcome to the Science of Mind class here at CSLDallas. Huge, monumental shout out to Dr. Tracy for doing a fabulous job as always when I'm out of town. Super appreciate Dr. Tracy. I know you guys had a fabulous time with her. And also for stepping in on the Sunday celebration. So we are in Mind, the Greatest Discovery. And we're on page 90, we're on page 77, page 77 on the little section called Reading Thoughts. So I know Tracy has really talked with you about mind and the revelation of the subjective or subconscious mind that is so cornerstone to New Thought and to the science of mind. And this notion, reading thought, is a nod to all the psychic phenomena, especially telepathy, knowing who's going to call on the phone, answering questions that somebody doesn't ask out loud, all of those things that we all do. And just as a little historical aside, as you may recall, if you've been walking this path for a while, there is an earlier version of the science of mind. It was originally written in 1926. This is the edited version. And in the 1926 version, there is a very, very large section on psychic phenomena. Because when Ernest Holmes was writing, and during the late 1800s and the early 1900s, spiritualism and psychism and divination was as hot a topic as it is for us today. And so he wanted to address that in the science of mind. The challenge is that they discovered, or they felt like it was really causing people to focus more on that, the development of psychic phenomena, than it was on focusing on understanding the nature of reality and really doing the spiritual work to work with manifesting our own lives. So an entire chapter was reduced to this little section called Reading Thought. And part of the reason for that is because in the entire section of psychic phenomena in the 1926 textbook called The Science of Mind, the whole section said, oh, reading thought, well, of course, it's all one mind. Oh, clairvoyance, well, of course, it's all one mind. Well, clairaudience, well, of course, there's no time and space in the one mind. And so just going through all of the various ways in which we experience psychic phenomena, I mean, the answer basically is, well, of course, it's all one mind. And we have all kinds of senses that operate on that level that we simply have forgotten how to develop, or we have been invited not to develop. And many people, of course, develop them either accidentally or on purpose, which is really lovely. So one of the reasons why we recognize that this idea of one mind is this notion that when we say it's all one at every level, right? So creation is all one, and consciousness is all one, and the mental, they use the word mental, we might use the term consciousness, is all one. It's everywhere present. And so if we're a part of that, and of course when we talk about the idea of universal subjective mind, that infinite subjective or subconscious reality that is the knower and the doer, we're going to talk about that in a minute, we're also all a part of that. So the reality of psychic phenomena is not surprising in the science of mind. The way that we would hold it is that it's psychic phenomena. So it's phenomena no different than physical phenomena. And it's great. We love physical phenomena, right? We love our lives, our children, our beautiful homes, and our expression, our creativity, our work, all the things that we do here in the space-time continuum, right? We love all of that. This is originally blessed. So therefore, psychic phenomena can't be any different. It must be originally blessed. It must be a part of the whole. But it is still phenomena. It is not the unformed, infinite experience of conscious contact with that infinite reality that is unformed, in which there is no phenomena. And so, what we want to do is not chase it any more than we chase money and power and prestige. Money and power and prestige come by being who we are. Psychic phenomena comes by being who we are. Right? It's not necessarily by in and of itself going to make us happy, nor is it going to have a negative impact on us any more or less than regular phenomena, than physical phenomena. It's all in what we make of it, how we use it, what we're doing with it. Reading thought should be utterly unsurprising. So the longer that Karen and I have been together, we just celebrated yesterday our 6th wedding anniversary. It's astonishing how often we hear each other and how often we answer questions or say something that the other person hasn't said out loud, right? Because we've spent so much time in spiritual practice together and in alignment together Jason growing up, he hated it because I could always hear what he was thinking. And of course, that's why moms all have eyes in the back of their head. Right? That's because that's what's happening. We're engaged at a different level, but it's still engagement in the realm of phenomena. So the other thing I would say about this is, as we're doing our spiritual work, we should not be surprised when psychic experiences start to happen. And so make sure that if that's an experience that's happening with you that you are unfamiliar with, that you do talk to practitioners or other people who are really well versed in it, so that you can incorporate that, manage that, work with that in the same way that we work with our physical world. Right? Just like there are times when you know that there's negative energy in a room and you don't want to attract it, just is the same as when you realize that there are toxic people that you're engaging with and you don't want to attract them anymore than just having them out here. And so the same thing is true. There are lots of ways in which we can invite and also shield from things that are moving at every level of the energetic phenomena, from pure energy all the way into the physical world. So not to be afraid of it, but to get some good coaching and guidance, and to remember that it's an expression of life. But it's not the infinite in its, what shall we say, absolute reality, just as we are experiencing a finite, individualized version of that. So there's lots of ways that this has been explored. It's been explored in research, it's been explored in psychology, all kinds of things. One of the most interesting ways it's been explored, if you've ever read anything by Rupert Sheldrake, he's a biologist, and he's done all of these studies on what he calls the morphogenetic field, which is really a biological exploration and research on the universal subjective mind that we're all a part of. And through various studies with chemistry and with biology, they can show that there is a ubiquitous field in which we're operating, that information is exchanged across long distances. Right, so in chemistry, they started doing these experiments where they would combine different kind of chemicals that were really hard to combine, and they would work with it until it would start combining, and it would start getting easier to combine. Then they would take completely fresh, unrelated aspect of the same chemicals across the world, and they would combine it, and rather than having trouble combining, it would combine as fast as the ones that were done originally, after a series of experiments. It's really extraordinary to read about this. On the level of they use mice a lot in laboratory experiments, and they run them through mazes. And so they began to notice that if you took a mice and they learned a maze over a period of time for whatever, it didn't really matter what the research was about. If another research group somewhere else in the world decided that they wanted to replicate those kinds of experiments, when they reconstructed completely fresh the maze and the experiment, the mice, wherever they were across the world, unrelated in any way genetically whatsoever, they would be able to manage the experiment and the maze as quick as the last generation of mice that they had been working with over here somewhere across the world. And so, and you can see this layer on layer on layer on layer. And so he calls that the morphogenetic field. In the science of mind, we call that the universal subjective mind. That there is this intelligence, this, we would use the word today, consciousness, that is ubiquitous, and that our consciousness is a shared aspect of that consciousness. And so we have lots of documented people like Edgar Cayce. He talked about it like the Akashic records. He imagined it and experienced it literally as if he was walking through the halls of a museum, and he could pick out incidences and things from the past or the future, right? Basically walking through this ubiquitous universal subjective mind. Jerry, can I ask you to go out and close the doors into the sanctuary? That would be really great. I would really appreciate that. Thank you. So it's all very fascinating, and it can be very fun. It can also be a little spooky and like, what's happening? And we can certainly play with it as much as we play with manifestations and creating things in our lives. And it's a lovely way of expanding our life experience and our expression. And the most important thing is not to be afraid of it, not to be afraid of it, not to be, and the other thing I would say is, having done years and years and years and years of study in all kinds of divination practices, they're very fun, they absolutely work, and what they reveal to us is what is in the universal subjective mind, either about ourselves or about someone else. We're basically reading, the divination practices help us read what's in there. When we get really good at it, we don't need the divination practices anymore. We can simply recognize that that information is always already present, and all we have to do is open ourselves to it and invite it in. The divination practices can really help focus, whether you're reading the tarot cards or doing the Enneagram or whatever it is. My favorite thing is I have decks and decks and decks of oracle cards, all different kinds. And every once in a while, if I'm feeling particularly like I pretend that I don't know what to do, or I pretend that I can't really just, figure out what's going on, right? Basically what divination practices often do when we pull an oracle card and, ask a question is it just allows us to tell ourselves what we already know. We're just, we just weren't quite ready to say it out loud or admit it. Or quite frankly, it's so deeply back there that it's really great to have it reflected to us in a card or in something that helps us see it. What we want to remember is that we are reading from that infinite mind, which is always and forever available to us. And so we don't want to use practices as a crutch, thinking that we can't make a decision or we can't know something or move forward without reaching for some kind of a practice, as if it were always outside of ourselves. Right? Because it's not, because we're part of that one mind. And what we're reading is that one mind. And what we're inviting in is that one mind. And so as long as we remember that those practices are helping us access something we already know or is already available to us, that's great. But we don't want to use it as a way of saying, well, I can't make a decision unless it's somehow given to us from the outside. Right? Because we always want to be living from the inside out, not from the outside in. So all of that for this little tiny paragraph, it's really fascinating if you are a student of the science of mind, or you're somebody who loves to, research and read things and find out about things from a different point of view. I do recommend the 1926 version of the science of mind. There's a lot of stuff in there that got edited out because they want it to be more clear, and then it was kind of rearranged and made more clear. Ernest Holmes was very much a part of it, so it's not like somebody did something with his words that he didn't know about. But there's some really interesting things in there. There's also some really interesting things in there about psychology, psychoanalysis, and Freud, which were also taken out because, of course, that moved along, right? That moved on, and new ideas were unfolding, so they took some of that out. Today we could take out some of the old science as well. So let's stop there and talk about, it's always worthwhile to stop and talk about this idea around psychic phenomena and to explore it a little bit, to answer questions. If you are having an experience that you are uncertain about or would like to ask some questions about, if you want to share something, your experience about it, how you have been working with that in your own life, that'd be great. But I'd always like to stop here because it's not something we teach straightforwardly. There's lots and lots and lots of people who do great work teaching this, if this is something that you're interested in, mediumship or divination or psychic readings and all of that. There's so many amazing people who are doing amazing work with it. We don't actively teach it here, but always want to make sure that we have a safe container in which to talk about it, ask questions, provide insight or guidance. Because sometimes people have scary experiences, and I've done a lot of work with that with people. So let's just stop and see comments, questions. So we're going to turn to the back to our fabulous Joseph there, manning our online and everything else. So good morning, Joseph.
Good morning.
What's going on out there?
Thank you guys for joining us. This is an intriguing conversation. We want you guys to participate as well, as Dr. Petra said. If you could, if you have a question or a comment and you're joining us on Zoom, it's simple. You can just tap the raise your hand icon, and at that time I'll ask you to unmute your mic and join the conversation. If you're joining us on Facebook, then you can as well join by commenting in the chat area. And like Dr. Petra said, we want to keep you guys' identities as safe as possible. So don't fear, just come right on in. Raise your hand if you're in the room with us, and you can join as well.
Okay, I think I saw the microphone being passed. Is there somebody who has a comment or a question out here in the room? Otherwise, we'll look and see if there's somebody who has a comment or question online, or give it a minute. Oh, there we go.
Good morning.
It's just for online. You won't hear it in the room.
My name is Brian, and Dr. Petra, I liked what you said about it's just phenomena. I think sometimes we can chase. It's cool to chase it. But I mean, it's like, as you said, physical phenomena. One of my questions was about past lives, past life regression, or do you have any comments on that?
It's a great question. So the science of mind is in some way an attempt at a correction of the Western tradition to be overly focused in heaven and hell and the afterlife. And truthfully, the East is also equally as obsessed in certain places and ways with karma and things like that. So when Ernest Holmes was writing The Science of Mind, and basically what he said is nobody's been there and sent a YouTube video home or taken an Instagram picture. So we really don't know. We have an innate, intuitive sense that we are so much more than this particular life experience. But whether it's reincarnation, whether it's something else, we actually don't know. And so the science of mind is particularly interested in our current life experience, and not to miss this life experience by being overly focused on what's going to happen in the afterlife, reward and punishment, basically. Okay, a lot of us are pretty far along beyond worrying about heaven and hell. And so then we get to the conversation of reincarnation, which is basically what past lives is pointing to. And Ernest Holmes's personal opinion was, well, if it's an infinite reality, and once we are self-actualizing, we're infinite beings, really, the earth is the only place we would ever come back to? That seems a little limiting. Right? So you might come back to the earth for 1,000,000 years, but eventually you maybe have done everything there is to do, and perhaps there are other levels of forms and expressions. I mean, we are, after all, also beings of light. And if we are living in an energetic body, the physical space-time continuum on planet Earth might not be the place where an energetic body would most comfortably express. And so there's no organized response to that. Ernest Holmes personally himself thought, well, if we are infinite beings forever expanding, then whatever form of expression we have, life after life after life after life after life, would actually be more of an upward spiral. And, potentially we would, metaphorically crawl out of the mud, become more self-aware beings, become more, as the Buddhists talk about, enlightened. We might become so enlightened we become bodhisattvas, and then eventually we would become beings of light, and we would operate as energetic beings on whatever plane of existence energetic beings operate on, and then whatever is beyond that. And we know from science today that there's all kinds of conversations about multiple universes, and just coming back to the Earth seems like extraordinarily limited. But the other side of that coin is, if we recognize that we're the place where the universal is individualizing itself, and that we are the place where the universe has individualized itself, and that individuation now has infinite expansion, infinite expression, it would be no less surprising that we would have experiences before this particular form, this particular expression. And so, so I have 2 or 3 really, really, really concrete memories and experiences of previous lives. Whether it's actually previous lives or whether it's the fact that we are infinite beings. And if there's no time and space in the infinite, then we're having all the lives at the same time. It just makes my brain hurt. Right? And so The question is always, in the science of mind, the question is always, what impact does it have on our life today? That is the only question science of mind is interested in. Any other question that you want to play with, feel free to go play with it wherever, whoever is playing with those kinds of things. And the single biggest answer that the science of mind has is you can always set a new cause in motion. So no matter what has happened before you were born, whether it was in the womb or way, 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 way in other lifetimes or in other places, the science of mind does not believe in an inexorable kismet fate. You must you must experience the unalterable outcome. So you were abused as a child because you were abusive in some former life. Maybe yes, maybe no. It could be that the parent was simply working out their pain. But no matter what, when we have these experiences, then we get to say to ourselves, we can set a new cause in motion. It's not like does it make sense? It's not fixed, right? Otherwise you have completely lost free will, and you have completely lost your ability to co-create. And it doesn't mean that if you're not paying attention, it doesn't play out, because it does. But just like the beliefs that we've created in this lifetime from our childhood or along the way, they play out until we wake up and go, wait. That's not true. That belief is not true, or that belief isn't a belief upon which I want to run my life. So for me, my personal example of this, or one of the ones that I would share with you, is that my son and I, if without modern medicine, we would both be dead. We would have both died in childbirth. And there was, so later, I was doing some work with a dear friend of mine, some energetic releasing work, and it really had nothing to do with my son, and it was nothing to do with all of that. And we were doing this work, and what I noticed is that I couldn't speak, no sound was coming out, even though I was expressing that I was super angry and I had a lot of energy, and literally no sound was coming out. And so she began to ask me, well, when was the first time you have had this experience? And I wasn't just in my childhood. I started skipping back and back and back, and I realized that I had not successfully birthed a child since the 1500s, because apparently, according to my remembrance, or this experience of this past life, is that I was some person in a court who, a woman who got pregnant out of wedlock. But I was important enough that was not okay. And I was young enough that I couldn't do anything about it, and they locked me in a tower, and I died giving birth to that child in that tower, screaming, unable. Nobody came, nothing happened, and I died. And from that point on, I never successfully birthed a child until I birthed Jason, thanks to modern medicine. But it was that screaming and nobody came that has haunted my life, which is what closed down my voice. Oh man. So not being able to ask for help, knowing that if I asked for help, nobody would come. I mean, that was a lifelong, that was like, and when that emerged, like all of a sudden, literally I was screaming at the top of my lungs, like something broke, a dam broke. Now, for whatever that is, right, that was a monumentally powerful moment for me. I don't really need to know a whole lot about that life. I don't need to know whether or not, I mean, we're not all princesses and kings and queens and whatever in our past lives. I was also somebody walking across the plains with a skirt and a baby and a musket on my shoulder. The baby was my husband's child from a wife who had died in childbirth, and I lost him crossing the plains in a attack by the Native Americans. I mean, I had a deep, deep, visceral experience of that, which is why when I was a teenager, I wore nothing but long skirts. Nothing but long skirts. Everybody else was wearing jeans. I was wearing long skirts. So, for whatever, do you see what I'm saying? So one had a really powerful impact on me. One is just like, that's kind of an interesting thing. But the question is, what's the impact that it has in my life today? And setting that new cause in motion, that was when I started to really work on finding my voice, telling my truth, allowing myself to be both sad and angry, and saying those things out loud, and not feeling like I was going to be abandoned. And so that's always the question. What is it? How is it playing out? What can we do with it in this lifetime? Because whatever happened before and whatever happens after, they are still governed by the law of cause and effect. The good news is we can always set a new cause in motion. So thanks, Brian. It's a great question. And you know, each one of us has to answer that question for ourselves. What we think about it, what we experience about it. The Science of Mind does not want to spend a lot of time on it because we don't want to get distracted from this life as so many thousands of years people have. They've been so overly focused on reward and punishment in the next that we've missed this life. All right, I see, Joseph, you have your hand up back there. There must be something going on out there.
Yes, ma'am. Looks like we have a response from our Zoom audience. Connie, could you please unmute your mic and join the conversation?
Good morning, Connie.
Good morning, Reverend Peter. I'm so happy to see you. Glad you're back.
Thanks.
And so I have a couple things to share. I know of a man who is a medical intuitive. And I can't see you now. What's up?
I don't know. Just go ahead.
There we go.
Just go ahead.
No, he went away again.
That's all right. They're working on it in the back. Just go ahead, Connie.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, he can tell a person over the phone. I call him every once in a while, not that often, but every once in a while. He can tell the person if they have COVID, Omicron, and in general about their physical condition. But I call him a lot, not a lot, but once in a while, about asking him if I'm clear of COVID and the things. And he can tell me yes or no over the phone. Mm-hmm. And then he can clear it, whammo, over the phone, it's gone. And it's fantastic. And he's told me that my osteoporosis is clear and good, and my bones are strong, and things like that. And so it's pretty comfortable.
Lovely.
And yeah, when I tell people about it, some people just go, "Oh no, I can't get involved in any of that. That sounds crazy." And others say, "Yeah, I want to know his information."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, Connie. Right, and that's the thing. Everybody has to do what is yours to do. Whether this is something that you're intrigued by, want to explore, not explore. Right. This is why we neither promote nor deny. We don't teach it because everybody has a different level of interest with it, and a different level of wanting to explore. So thanks for sharing that, Connie. I mean, people are doing amazing work. And of course, as we know, that if it's all part of the whole, then all of it contributes. And we pick and choose those things that resonate with us. Okay, we have a comment and a conversation, two over here. Start there and there. Please say your name.
I'm sorry, I'm new, so
No.
this may be a dumb question. So
Don't be sorry.
first question is...
Tell me your name.
I'm sorry, my name is Cecilia.
Cecilia.
And
Hi,
I have a
Cecilia.
question. What about the people that believe in heaven and hell? And number two, when you died, where did you go?
What about what?
When you said after you died?
But the first question, what about the people who believe in heaven and hell?
Yeah. Yes. How do you feel about that? Because I do. I was just wondering.
How do I feel about it? Well, I don't speak from what I feel. I'm speaking what Science of Mind teaches, right? And so what Science of Mind teaches is heaven and hell is a state of consciousness. And so we can experience it right here, right now. We can be in heaven, or if we feel as though we're expressing a full life, and we can be in hell when we feel as though we can't be who we are and we can't live a life that is in alignment with who we've come here to be. And so the Science of Mind does not teach about the afterlife, one way or the other. So you are free to believe whatever you choose to believe and whatever works for you. Again, the only question Science of Mind has is, how does it impact your life today? And how does it provide value for your life today? If it provides value, great. And if it causes you to miss your own life, then that's something that Science of Mind would say is not helpful. So what happens after you die? No clue. Nobody has gone and, as I said, sent us a video or a YouTube or Instagram. There's lots and lots and lots of experiences that people have had. And so those are worth exploring. What we believe and teach is that we are individualized expressions of the one. So you were before you were born, and you will be after you die. You are already an eternal, immortal, deathless, changeless soul. And what we do is clothe ourselves in different experiences so that we ourselves can grow into more and more of who we have come here to be. That's what we're interested in. So thanks for your questions. All right, here we go. We have a question right here.
Well, my name is Shauna, and
Shauna.
really it's just a reaction to this discussion. One of the things I've really loved about the Science of Mind is the willingness to be curious about so many things in our universe and the lack of judgment about that exploration. And I think lots of different religions judge. They create a box and they say this fits in our box, and all of that is sinful, right? And so that's one of the things I've really always enjoyed about Science of the Mind, because I also am very curious. Mm-hmm. And so I love that about how we show up.
Yeah, beautiful.
Because I don't think there's so much we don't know. So why not be open?
Right.
That they just announced that they have finally, after looking since 2015, they finally have evidence of the gravitational waves that Einstein talked about in 1950,
Right,
which
and
was
it was
relativity.
and it was purely a mathematical
Yes,
formula.
Exactly. And now they have evidence based on the pulsars. And,
Right.
when he came up with it in 1950, people thought that was the most crazy thing in the world. And it just reminds me that, and then we have, all these experiments of remote communication, two people on different sides of the world, one person thinking and the other person drawing what that person is seeing, right? And so I just think it's wonderful that we're limitless about possibilities.
Yeah, thanks, Shauna. And it's interesting to, read and explore. And so much has been written about near-death experiences. We have thousands of years of the mystical experience of oneness, which is transcendent of physical form. We have experiences of people who do, in fact, cross the veil, however they, experience that. I mean, it's really... And so, yes, to be curious is really powerful.
I say the other side of that coin to me is to not be fearful.
Yes, to not be fearful. Right. to not be fearful. And if we understand that we live in a safe universe, and the infinite universe is fundamentally love, to imagine that we would not be loved for all of eternity is an impossibility. And so there's certainly the when we speak about we don't speak about reward and punishment. We just simply speak about consequences and benefits. Right? And so the consequence of having a closed consciousness that is hateful and harmful is that it's done unto us as we believe. And the consequence of having loving consciousness that is as open and forgiving and connective as possible, then, right, it says done unto us as we believe. So in the science of mind, we don't teach reward and punishment. We simply teach the outcome of the law, which is the consequence of beliefs and actions. And if that's true, then that's true at every level. So that's true not only here, but we understand that to be part of the nature of reality, part of the very fabric of reality itself. So in the multiverses, there is some way in which this law of cause and effect is playing out. And that's why we think it's so important. As conscious beings, we can set a new cause in motion. We can stop being afraid, we can be curious, we can stop being hateful and start being open, we can stop being closed and start being loving. I mean, all kinds of new causes can be set in motion. We can stop withholding, start telling the truth, whatever it is, right? And that's going to change the trajectory of our own lives, whether it's in this particular lifetime or whether it's in a sort of infinite trajectory for each one of us. So the good news, as far as I'm concerned, is that you have eternity. You have eternity to become who you are. You have eternity to grow in love and joy. You have eternity to expand into the infinite, deep, infinite connection with love and the presence. You have eternity to grow into that expansive spiritual truth that is the truth of who you are. And to, really to imagine that we only have this lifetime and then eternity is governed by that, just for the science of mind doesn't make sense. If we are eternal beings, then we have eternity. And so, we can stop taking it quite so seriously, stop being afraid, play a little bit more with it, be curious, push the boundaries a little bit more into what life might be like if we really showed up as the light that we are. And as I said, it's really interesting. I've known a number of people who've had amazing near-death experiences and have come back and had, really extraordinary visions. And so don't be afraid to explore that either. But ultimately, you have to trust your heart, your intuition and your heart. It is your guide. And wherever you are on your path, your intuition and your heart will help you answer those questions for yourself at this particular moment in time. Mine has certainly changed over the years. It has expanded. The more experiences I have, the more deeply spiritually connected I feel, the more I understand about the nature of reality, right? What my intuition is able to grasp and what I know has expanded. And all of ours will too. So don't be afraid. All right, all of that from that little tiny paragraph. So next week we are going to carry on with mental laws, so keep reading with us, and we will keep exploring. We'll look forward to seeing you in the celebration here in a little bit, or we will see you when we see you. Have a great rest of your day. Bye for now.